Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another one of our online virtual Meet the Filmmakers series. We're really excited today to be spending some time with director Louis Gonzales and producer Courtney Kent of a little studio called Pixar Animation down in the Bay Area. You might have heard of them before. And they are representing an awesome film called Nona that was written and directed by Louis. And we're excited to talk about that today. We were screening it at Spark this year, another amazing Spark Animation Festival. This one virtual, of course, 2021, trying to keep everyone safe, trying to keep everyone grounded, but a beautiful event nonetheless to be able to be connected with amazing artists from around the world. My name is Colin Giles. I'm very happy to be involved with Spark again this year. Currently, I'm the head of the School for Animation and Visual Effects here in Vancouver, and I'm actually in our campus. Thank goodness we're back in campus for the most part, and it's good to be here and great to be here spending some time with Louis and Courtney. My thanks to Pixar Animation Studios for allowing us to have this time with you today. And looking forward to deep diving a little bit into Nona, which I've watched a few times now, if nothing else for all the wicked wrestling action going on there. As you know, as my age and where I grew up, definitely threw down some Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan videos back in my day. So
Nice.
Well, thank you, Louis and Courtney, for spending some time with us today. Let's start at the beginning. Let's start at the present meaning, and we'll work ourselves backwards a little bit here. But it's my understanding, that the Spark Shorts initiative at Pixar has been ongoing for a little while. And usually, we talk here at the school, especially about pitching ideas and this type of thing. But it's my understanding that it's kind of a reverse here. Someone just approaches you and you get going on this. And Louis, maybe you can talk a little bit about that moment when you were approached to direct a short. You've been at Pixar for quite a few years. Just walk us through that process and how surprising it was for you.
Well, first, Colin, thanks for having us. I know you thank Pixar, but we showed up. You know what I mean? Like Pixar just said we can go. I'm just playing. Thank you for having us. So the whole pitch thing, how it came about. Spark is a program that I think that the company is using to identify people they see as potential directors, right? And so they've been really like selecting people, like really not, I was gonna say really good about it, but they've been selecting people. And it's, luckily I was one that they were like, they thought about me. They were like, you know what? I was kind of just coming off a show that had gotten shelved actually. And they were like, what do you want to do next? And in a weird way, I know this sounds probably, silly, but I actually didn't think I had much of a say in my career at Pixar. I had been there 18 years at that point, I think it was. And it just felt like, I think I'm only going to ever be just a head of story. And if I want to direct or be creative, I have to probably leave. And I'm not saying this like that's what I said to Pixar. I didn't go to Pixar like, I'm going to leave if you don't give me a director position. That's not how it was. But that's just where I was at, mentally and where I was at with my career. And then it was like, this movie got shelved. I didn't know what was next. I was like, do I want to be a head of story? And they were like, well, what do you think about a Spark short? And I was like, well, no, thank you. But I was like, I don't know. Like, I kind of want to do a series. I was thinking movie or series. Like I wanted to develop something serious. And the Spark short at the program at the time was kind of like internal. The biggest plans they had at the time when I said no is they were like, well, maybe we'll put it on YouTube. They weren't sure what they were going to do with it. Right. This is also pre Disney Plus. So as it started to come out, as Disney Plus started to ramp up and as I took a little time with it, and they asked me again, I was like, yes. I said yes, without hesitation, because, I was hesitating. I was hesitating about it because, it wasn't because it was a bad opportunity or not an opportunity I wanted. I just didn't understand it because I was thinking about something else. And then when I actually thought about it and said, it's an opportunity to tell a story with the fantastic artists at Pixar, I said yes. I said, well, I would be a fool not to take this on. A short series or whatever, being a short form story, I'm like, that's going to be just as hard as anything else. It's plenty of room to fail in front of all my friends and people at Pixar. So I said, why not? Let's just take this chance to see if I, hopefully not fail, but, let's just take this and see what happens because, no risk, no reward, and for me, it was like, this is the time to put up or shut up. I'm not getting what I was hoping, which is a series, but it was the short was there. And I was like, that's a great opportunity. I need to take this, and run with it as much as I can.
Yeah. Not a bad way to do something that's a little scary outside the box, maybe outside your comfort zone in a structure like Pixar, right? Where you're going to have mentorship and support all the way.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Is and that was pretty much what I came to. I was like, how bad am I gonna really fail? You know what I mean? Like, honestly, I'd have to like sit in the pool and maybe drink myself to, to asleep every day and not do the work. You know what I mean? Because it's just hard not to want to excel when everyone around you is all about that, right? It's kind of like having a great workout partner. It's just they're just going to push you, not on purpose. They're going to push you by example. They're going to push you by what you see them doing. Like, oh shit, they just made the reflection they give you is you're like, for me, I go, oh man, you're making me feel lazy. And that's what I love about the community, is that they really kind of, by action, through what they do, through their passion, they push you, whether they know it or not. And so how bad could you fail? Really? That was my thing.
So we'll talk about the film specifically in a second, but maybe Courtney, you can talk a little bit about, your involvement in this film as a producer and also getting involved in the Spark Sorts initiative.
Yeah, I had the fortune of the very first Spark Short Smash and Grab. I got to come and help out on that project for a couple of months, which was just a fun kind of introduction. It was a very new program, figuring out how it was actually going to structure, how it was going to get resources. So it was kind of fun to see those early days. And I think that kind of led me to put my name out there of being really interested in being able to produce one whenever the opportunity came up. And on the producer side, it's kind of the same. It's kind of the who they feel like would be a good fit and partnership once the directors decided. And so Louis and I didn't actually know each other prior to doing this, besides maybe seeing each other generally around the studio. But I found out he was out of the country. So I sent him an email saying, hi, I'm going to be your producer, which I think he got after landing back in the country. And he was like, who's this person? And it was really fun to kind of sit down, our first interaction over tea and coffee, and I don't know, a little bit of sizing each other up of who are you? What do you want out of this experience? What's really important to you? What are your values? We found a lot of common ground, and I think started to build from there. And I think for me, the Spark program itself is really appealing because I've worked on a lot of films at Pixar and a lot of shorts. And in this Spark world, we're responsible for the morale. And that is all just really appealing. And I had a whole lot of fun doing that and having that ownership over the project.
What a fun exercise. Absolutely. So Louis, they come to you, Courtney, you're joining the team here. And now you're like, well, now I gotta freaking make something like, so let's talk about Nona specifically. Autobiographical. Are you a wrestling fan? Was your grandma a wrestling fan? Let's talk a little bit about your personal connection to the sort of genesis for this idea.
Yeah, of course. So when I said yes, immediately after, it is basically that. It's like, okay, what do I have? Like, what do I want to do? Like, here I am on stage, right? What's the act I'm going to perform? Is it a horror act? Is it scary? Is it, like completely abstract? And I'm going to go for like that 60s kind of improvisational, like political film where it's like really smash, it's completely open, And so personally, I had these two characters that I was drawing, and I was like, well, I have this, and they've been fun to draw. Like this grandma character is kind of tough, and this granddaughter. And it's been, I don't know why, like, you have, like, I don't know if you have this, Colin, but like I have a sketchbook, and it's like you have characters that kind of own different worlds, and you're like, ooh, I'd like to do a story with those characters one day in that world. And you have these little worlds. And so I had this one when I think about the short was like, okay, I need something small. So I'm going to do a character piece, and of all the ideas I have, the one that feels the most like it could be a short is this one with the grandma, the granddaughter. Because I had this loose backstory about the grandmother being this, apartment supervisor that, fixes everything. And there's a little bit of magic in this apartment because this apartment was like this central access point between the underworld and the above world. And it had this huge, big backstory. But in the end, I knew that I could take the grandmother that I liked the character of, like this strong kind of, strong grandmother maternal figure, and kind of not do the grandma that's like, oh, let me bake you cookies and let's watch my soaps and all that. Basically I am, but it's like kind of pushing it in the world that I know, where I just don't think that, although this is not my story, right, this is not something that happened to me, it is a reflective of my story, right? Because it's my grandma's the influence, my daughter's the influence, wrestling's a huge influence, and wrestling's not there just because I like it, right? Wrestling is there as a very specific choice to go, okay, if my grandma doesn't, a grandma, and for the most part, still going to have a TV show. So what kind of TV show would this grandma watch, right? Of course, wrestling, right? Because it's a novella, it's a story, it's colorful like cartoons. It's kind of like, it's the best of all worlds in that regard, where it's like big, colorful. There's stories there, like they're doing Cain and Abel, and they're doing classic stories, you know. But it's just really just fun. It's an athletic, you know, Shakespearean thing, you know, where you're like, it's a funny combination, and that's why I liked it, because I'm like a grandma with wrestling, and I love wrestling. These are the things that you love, and I think that it's hard for me to separate any story, any character, any world from the things that I love, the people that I love, you know, the experiences that I love. It's hard to disassociate, because I can't just go like, oh, it's like that thing in like Pulp Fiction. It's like Tarantino, or it's like, you know, De Niro or Pitt or whatever, you know, because those are caricatures. Those are already like, you know, a thing. And if I took it, it's a copy of a copy of a copy in a way, you know? And so if I want to find something specific in what I'm saying, then I need to look inside and try and pull apart what it means, and then see how it connects. And, you know, basically, I feel like I'm grafting my experiences onto these other characters, you know what I mean? Where it's like a science experiment. You put them together and see what happens. You know, maybe it grows into a weed, you know, or maybe it grows into a beautiful rose, which I think Nona did, you know. So that, you know, it's hard to separate that experience from the story that you want to tell.
Yeah, it definitely comes through for sure in the film, that like it feels like it's touched by many different influences throughout the director's life, without being like this imposing, like you only own this idea, right? You allow the audience to kind of take some ownership over that, which is Courtney, for you, you know, I mean, outside of the practicality of producing this and helping Louis and helping the team, you know, you got to come to work every day, focus your energy on this film. What was your connection to it? What did you get out of this experience from a creative standpoint?
Well, that's also another one of the things that I really, really enjoyed when Louis and I kind of started creating some structure around what kind of an experience. Like, we really wanted a collaborative environment. So getting to be an actual creative partner and being involved in those conversations is something that for me as a producer is really appealing. I don't want to just be doing the budget and the scheduling. I actually want to be a part of those conversations. So the fact that our entire team was kind of a part of that was also something that was really important to me. Where else was I going to go with this? Also, personally, like, this was made during a pandemic. When Louis and I first met, this story about a little girl and a grandmother. I have a daughter. At the time, she was a 5-year-old. So I'm like, oh, great, this is going to be totally relatable. Then we went into lockdown, and I was around her and my 4-year-old son every single day. And just the baseline of this story, of that conflict of these two things that you love, one of which being a small child and another being another passion, which for me was work, it just made the story so much more relatable. And I think the storyline that Louis ended up choosing, I think the fact of how we ended up making the production, I think everybody on our team connected to it in such a different way than we potentially would have, that I think that made the experience so much richer. And I think the end story also benefited and was richer from that. It's fun to provide inspiration for the story for my children as well.
100%.
This is how you keep a kid entertained for 18 months straight in your living room.
Oh, look, my kid is climbing up the banister on the wrong side right now. Oh, we need some really dangerous. Yes.
Yeah, I can relate. I've got a 6 and a 3-year-old, and it was like, yeah, that journey of the pandemic. Well, it's still kind of ongoing, right? It's just, I kind of ran out of ideas by week 3. So it kind of pushes you a bit. Let's talk about that. I mean, you know, during Spark here, we're seeing, during the Spark Festival, we're seeing a lot of films that have been made remotely. And in some cases there was established, you know, work processes like that. But let's talk about that for you, especially at Pixar, making this film, being tasked to direct something for the first time, and then being like, no, dude, you got to do this out of your little home office or something, with kids running around. Maybe the both of you can speak to this. Louis, you can speak to directing your first film from your comfort of your home.
Well, I'll say this, like, you know, being the guinea pig, and it wasn't just us, it was the whole of the studio, but like going from like, all right, here we go, Courtney and I are like, all right, we're getting everything going, right? We're getting the cars running and we're starting to accelerate on the gas, and all of a sudden, skirt, you know, like, here's COVID, you got to go home. And we'll have, you know, this thing called Zoom, and you'll be able to talk. And I think we're able to like show videos across there. We're going to see how this works out. And so, you know, basically before COVID goes, I had my rough pass, right? It was a really dirty, I called it my vomit pass, right? It was like, do we have a short, right? What do we have? And it was like, the idea was take a week, 2 weeks, maybe, and kind of roughly board out the whole thing, right? No bells and whistles, no little antics, just really like the shots. And when we were about to screen it is when COVID hit. So then when we actually screened it, it was it was such a hard screening to watch because it was like all sticky and stoppy, and you're trying to like get a sense for what this feels like, and it's not running at 24p or 30p, whatever it was. And it's just like, oh no, like this we're about to talk about failure. Like the feel of failure hit hard right there. It was like, oh no. Like not only was like the idea of getting the story right hard, that's always hard, but it was like, now we're gonna have to like figure out like how to watch this stuff, and it doesn't really work. Like, well, what's gonna happen, right? You kind of throw your hands up thinking it's gonna, blow up, in the atmosphere, but it didn't. And as we kind of eased into it and kind of got settled with it, I actually started to really love it, because there is a difference between the energy of being around a studio and trying to make something, because everything else is there as well. So it's easy to get distracted and siloed. We were making our first, punk album in the garage. That's what we were doing, and that was always the mantra. I was like, hey, we're a little garage band, man. We're a punk garage band, and we're going to make this thing dirty and loud and fun and fast. And that's the atmosphere we're in. So it was great to me, because I just love that we were solid. We were our own little tribe, making this thing thriving and surviving. It was fantastic, I thought.
Courtney, I mean, I know you guys were running under a small budget, so it kind of lends itself to that punk garage kind of just make it up as we go along. It would probably a much different experience than, working on Luca or something like that, the big engine going on in the background. But maybe you can talk about some of the challenges, that you had to overcome. I mean, there's a lot of characters in this short film, and it's all in 3D. So this is not a small little thing going on here.
No, I mean, A, just doing it from home, but B, Louis came to the table with just a plethora. And I mean, a personal goal is, let's see how much of this I can actually get on the film, but he's also coming to the table with, I don't know how in the world we can get all of this up on the screen. We ended up with a rock star team that was able to get pretty much everything on there, but you have like, with the wrestling on the TV, that's picture in picture. So that's a level of complication with all of its own set of characters. The Spark shorts are generally challenged with getting people, because we are kind of a lower priority in the studio than the feature films and things like that. So we had to be super creative about the people that we were getting for our team. There was nobody actually available from the characters team to come in and help us. And we have so many characters. So we had the advantage of the person that came out as our DP for layout. She also knows how to model and rig characters. And so she did both. And there's a lot of people on our team that did that double duty, but that just extra tax of having to be, how are we going to do this? How are we going to figure it out? She gets to figure out how to make a dog. And then we have to find somebody that can put a sweatshirt on a dog because it's adorable. And let's see if we can do it. Yes, there were a lot of challenges, and it was fun to see how many we could actually get on the screen. And I think our team also hit a pretty good stride, that we got to this point where we'd kind of gotten most of the things, and our team went above and beyond and was like, hey, we actually want to do this extra thing. We want to add these extra things. And when your team is so inspired that they want to keep adding, it's exciting. It's also challenging as a producer to try to help make sure that your team is doing it in a healthy way and not kind of overdoing it and taxing themselves too much. But yes, Louis came with a big idea. That was the big challenge.
But it's funny. I'm sorry, I'm laughing the whole way. I'm not laughing at Courtney at all. I'm just laughing because I'm replaying the conversations that we had during the making of like, and this is the way I always start. This is a real simple idea, everybody. Like, it's just a grandmother and a granddaughter, like, in one apartment. It's so simple. It's so simple. Like, my fear was no one's going to want to work on it because it's too simple of an idea. It doesn't have that like big conceptual, glimmer, like, oh my God, you're a blood vessel, in the body of a mastodon, like, circa, what is that story? Like, there's no big conceptual idea there. It was like, I want to tell a story about grandmother and granddaughter, right? So this simple story was not simple at all. Like, there's picture in picture, the multiple range of characters, like trying to figure out how to get 6 wrestlers and a referee, and what does that mean? How do we dress them? We can't pay for tailoring. We can't re-sculpt them, like, because we spend that on our main characters. So it's like all these little things added up. It was like, probably for Courtney, I have to imagine it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. You know what I mean? It was like, I don't think it's going to be that bad. Courtney's like constantly getting cut by little paper cuts because, like, all these little asks just add up to a mountain, right? And I'm thinking it's a molehill. But Courtney's like, no, buddy, that's a mountain. And I'm like, okay. You keep making mountains, Louis. And I'm like, I don't mean to. I'm thinking I'm making molehills trying to help here, but I'm making mountains, I guess.
I think we all got excited and kept adding to it. We had
Okay,
three
good.
different animation styles, 3 different lighting styles, 3 different aspect ratios, explosions,
Oh, yeah.
ripples, lots of things.
And Colin, I gotta say, I saw that in the theater, and I know it sounds like, I'm not gonna do the same, but seeing it on the theater, like on the big screen at the El Cap, was just so amazing, man. And it's funny because we saw it in the theater at Steve Jobs, but to see it at the El Cap, and now I'm seeing details that the crew put in that I didn't really see on our little Zoom screens or monitors when we're checking it out. And it was just, yeah, the team was just so killer, man. Like they just brought so much. They wouldn't be what it is without them.
Sounds like almost like what a great convergence of just timing, people, that great independent spirit, and being able to do it in the house of Pixar, right? That's a pretty lightning in a bottle sort of situation. That's rad.
Bro, Colin, I've experienced it twice in my career. One was on Iron Giant, one was on Ratatouille, and then one was this one where it just had this genuine spirit of, all the artists are just passionate about this thing. They want to make this thing great, and it just feels like everyone's in sync. And that was what was truly remarkable, because I could see it. And I'm like so happy about it, because every day I'm going like, every day is exciting, because it's like a little new challenge or a new thing. And you're around people that are just as excited about it. And that is how you fuel each other. That's how you get that big flame going,
Well, I've got a couple final questions here before we wrap this up. And I think one of them is something that is important to me, especially in education. The school that I'm at is extremely international. We get a lot of diversity. Got a lot of women in our program now, which is amazing. We're well over 50%, which is just
Great.
Awesome. A lot of South American representation as well. I just love getting these new stories that are coming in. So, we had a great conversation with Afton the other day. I know that you and her are featured in the documentary on Disney Plus, The Spark Story. There's a cool relationship there, a nice little mentorship situation going on. Maybe you could just speak to, this idea of Spark Shorts also being able to breed new voices and Latinx representation and what it means to you.
The Spark thing, breeding new stories, I think that's great. I think, Pixar, we're at a place where, I love that they're kind of stepping outside their comfort. We've never been able to do this before, in the previous years. And it's just nice now to go like, okay, we're not picking the same kind of like-minded people to continue to tell stories at Pixar, right? They're looking outside, and I feel like that's great, because like if they were not looking outside, they wouldn't have looked at me. That's how I feel. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but it's a kind of a beautiful thing to see us opening up, to what kind of stories we can tell, places we can, like, I think that's what's great about Spark. If you look at all the stories, I love how specific and how pointed every one of them is, right? From Smash and Grab, which is a really fun little story about 2 robots, to, Float, or, Pearl, like they all kind of have like these really separate and very specific points of view, which I think is what makes Spark so awesome, because it's just incredibly different in a lot of great ways.
Concentrated, like they're like,
yeah,
like a shot glass full of just like your favorite drink. Like it's just right on the nose.
Well, it's great, right? Because the Spark program is like, it's not about like representing Pixar per se or Disney. It's kind of like, we're going to give you this talent. That you have this talent. We want to see what you do with it. And so you get these pure shots of pure snapshots of who these people are as creatives. And that's great, because it's so much stronger representation versus like, if you go through a film, the thing you can say is like, you went through a film and you went through all those gates and you suffered all the slings of notes and trying to make it good with, hundreds of people behind you. And that's a huge feat in itself. Yeah. But, you are still getting notes and you're having to corral what those notes mean. So it's not as pure as a small Spark short where you can completely own and have ownership over all the calls and decisions. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's more your voice, because you're not having to suffer. Like, you take the notes you want. You don't have to worry about anybody else on a bigger scale to tell you like, I don't know if that appeals to like, little kids. You know what I mean? So that's what's nice about it. I that's the thing I really have grown to love about it.
Right. You don't have to answer to like focus groups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
are the focus group. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You choose, as a matter of fact, you choose your focus groups, right? So we have brain trust and we bring in our peers and people that we feel like have a point of view that could help us or would be interesting for us to kind of see what they have to say. And you curate that and have that. So you do it on your own anyway, you know what I mean? But it's just a matter of like a function of how you want to shape it, which is always nice.
Well, my last question here is going to put you both on the spot, and I'm going to start with you, Courtney, and then we'll wrap up with Louis. Nona, it's out there on Disney Plus. It's out there for the world to enjoy. It's been on the big screen as well. You're done. It's washed over you now. You've maybe slept for a few months, just trying to recuperate, or weeks at least.
Courtney.
What is the biggest thing you learned working on this film personally? Not just with Louis, not just with the team, but what are you going to take with you having had this experience?
I actually want to think about that to have a better answer. Louis, go for it.
Good question, Courtney. I'm very curious to hear this answer. Yes. Okay. I'll give you a few minutes, Courtney. Here, you know me, I could talk. The biggest thing I learned there, I mean, there's a couple of things that I thought were huge. And part of it is I'm not going to go like, you're like, not the team and all that. You're right. Like the team was the thing that didn't surprise me, but it was a thing that kind of getting everyone to that space where it just felt like everyone was, in sync was something that was like, I don't take ownership over that. I think it's a group effort to get there, and to kind of be a part of that was really interesting to kind of feel that come together. Right. So that's one thing, but that's like a crew-based thing. I think on a personal level, one of the things that that I took away and I know this is not deep at all. So sorry, I apologize in advance, but I thought it was hilarious. I mean, I think it's so funny, like how many grandmas love wrestling, right? I've gotten so many like emails and texts and like DMs and like LinkedIn and Instagram that's like, oh, my grandma did this. Even I have friends, like, bro, I have friends that I go to dinner with, like, about the same age, and they're like, oh my God, I never knew their grandmas used to take them to go see wrestling over here in Oakland. Like, I didn't know, but I didn't until I made this short and they saw it and they're like, oh, I was feeling that because that's how I was with my grandma here, in Richmond, in Oakland, whatever. I'm like, wow, like that to me was, I loved it. You know what I mean? Cause it kind of just felt like, and the great thing was, it wasn't just like, Latin America or, Latins or Hispanics from LA or from, the United States. I'm talking like French people, Brazil, like, from China, like everywhere, bro. And it was amazing to feel like, oh my God, I loved it because it became a universal thing. And that was the intention of the short from the go, was to go like no dialogue really. So we can kind of keep this really purist animation-y vibe of like, can we as a team sell this story in a visual way without having to rely on dialogue? Right. So it was a beautiful thing to kind of come out and go like, wow, not only did it resonate, but it resonated around the world in a great way, and it was a beautiful thing to kind of feel. Cause I don't know, for whatever reason, I didn't think grandma's wrestling was going to be a thing, but maybe it's a thing now. Maybe it's trended on Twitter. I don't know. I actually haven't looked. I don't look on Twitter. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. For me, having not produced before, I think coming in with insecurities and kind of as you're going along, and especially as you're getting towards the end and you see what a good time your crew is having. We on Fridays, especially as people were leaving our team, we gave everybody their own wrestler name, which was really a lot of fun and kind of helped bond us. But just seeing like how invested people got in that one little thing just really made me feel like, okay, I did this. Like Louis and I did this, and maybe there's a future in this kind of a path, and it's kind of fun and satisfying to get that, I don't know, that accomplishment at the end. And then kind of on the more personal side, just the story itself of just, I think it's made me really appreciate more the moments with my kids of just taking that time and that step back and like be in the moment. Don't always try to like do two things at the same time, like really just try to focus on one thing and enjoy, don't miss it. Time goes by too fast.
Amen. That's that. We can all learn that lesson in many aspects of our life. Awesome. Well, thank you, Louis. Thank you, Courtney. Not only for your time today, but for sharing Nona with us. It's a beautiful film, a beautiful accomplishment. Just finishing anything in friggin' animation is a feat in itself, let alone during a pandemic. In your first time directing, first time producing, just an awesome accomplishment. I hope you all enjoyed the film here at Spark. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. for this Meet the Filmmakers chat. You can see the film on Disney Plus, of course, and also see it featured in the awesome documentary. There's a lot of great behind the scenes Pixar stuff on Disney Plus right now. And seeing this and seeing Afton's film featured in a Spark story is just a great way to get a sense of this journey. So, and then personally, thank you guys for being here. I learned some stuff. It's always great to speak to other artists and people who are just doing really cool stuff. So keep it up. Can't wait to see what you come up with next after you get a little break. And maybe we'll see you back here again at Spark with some other amazing accomplishments. So thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Louis. Again, thank you to everyone at Pixar for giving them 30 minutes to come and hang out with us in the lounge here. And my thanks to Spark, our Spark yes. CG here in Vancouver. Awesome to be a part of it again. So what a great time it's been. Thank you, Louis. Thank you, Courtney. Stay safe. Be kind. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Colin.
Thanks, Colin. Thanks, Spark.
Thanks.